Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. And we said goodbye to Arif Halaby of Total Financial Solutions. And now we're saying hello to Kim Wall.
Hello.
And you are an alternative medicine advocate.
I am that.
Absolutely.
And tomorrow I'm going down to Anaheim at the Convention Center for Expo West, which is all things natural. So I'm going to go down there for 4 days and work harder than I would work in 4 weeks. But it's awesome to be able, I'll be there at the King Bio booth. I'll be there, as we say, sharing the healing revolution and empowering people that there are natural alternatives that can be done with Western pharmaceuticals, but homeopathics can be so powerful in what they can do to sometimes address things that nothing else really can help, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, what is this, a convention?
It is. It's for all the people in the industry. So it's all the stores and shops and stuff like that, practitioners. Mm-hmm. You have to sign up in advance. You go down there. It's for 4 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we set up tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Okay.
And it's like the second largest convention they have at the Convention Center down there in Anaheim. It's that big. It's crazy.
Do you have, is this open to the public? Can they come and purchase your wares?
You might check it out. I do believe on Sundays, I believe there is a day you can come from the outside, but it really is chaotic. It's what it is it's for the people in the industry to learn what's new, marketing, packaging, resourcing, food. It's homeopathics, natural supplements, vitamins. It's natural products like clothes, toys. Mm-hmm. It shows you, it's like the showcase of the industry. It's a real big deal. But it's exciting to go there because you see a lot of these people. And, and that's where we put that spark out there. When you go into your local health food store and they say, hey, what do you have for this? And you say, you know what, I was just at Expo. And, da-da-da-da-da, and we talked about this new product or that. So it's where they go meet the writers of the books and the creators of the products and what's new, what's the cutting edge things, that'll be brought to the market this year. It's really exciting. It's overwhelming. I remember walking it when I had the Wellness Center, and it was just the hardest day you ever did. I used to bring my kids as mules because it was just so much hard work to carry everything. And my one daughter would do it because she could get a henna tattoo at the end of the trip. So she always came with me. But it's just a way to let, when you go to your health food store or you go to your chiropractor or practitioners, they're going to have that knowledge because they've gone to an experience like this and seen what's the cutting edge products, what's everybody talking about out there on the market. So it's really exciting. I'm really excited to go down there and check it out. So like I said, it's a lot of hard work. But it's exciting. And actually this year I get to go to Canada next month with them to Vancouver. And I'm so excited to go up and see.
Little rain?
Yeah, well, I have no idea. Like I said, I'm excited, but it'll be neat to go see the industry in Canada and, what the differences are. Because, a big part of this is just making sure people know. It doesn't matter if it says natural or what it says on a label.
Organic.
It doesn't matter. We want to make sure there is the right people behind it, making sure that those statements are true. Where is your food coming? Food of origin labels. Yes. Is it's coming from here or there? I want to know that because then I might choose to buy local or buy from a place. I know this farm is organic or what that choice might be, but it's exciting because it's all in one place. So you get to go and stuff our brains.
Well, let's talk a little bit about something old, something that with our seniors who are listening right now who don't consider themselves old. You're an expert on what's natural, what's organic, and also what's the food that is polluted. Our seniors still, for some of them, don't realize, how our food supply has been poisoned. Yeah. And I think we've used that term before in the past here. And I think we should continue to attempt enlightening them that there are things that we are eating that are having an adverse effect on us. How do our seniors get enlightened on that?
Well,
Kim?
I'm glad you brought it up because, last week we touched on this, or last month we touched on this lightly. Mm-hmm. And, I don't buy a lot at the grocery store, so I wasn't familiar with the numbers. But 9 is the organic number and 8 is a number you stay away from because that is a genetically modified something. And the traditional 4 just means it's been raised in a traditional manner, which means there could be pesticides, there could be things put onto the plant in the growing process because that's considered traditional growing. You're right. If we're eating something we want to make sure, and it is hard, and you're right. What can we do? Farmers markets. I mean, the beauty is this. There's organic in Costco now. There's organics in almost every outlet you go to. It is. And that shows
all of the
people,
grocery
you bet,
stores.
it shows you the
Yes.
power of the dollar. How we're going to continue to sustain that organic in the future with looking at what we've done to our lands in the United States of America, we're probably going to see a lot of indoor hydroponic type organic growing because you'd be able to control. You'll have to. Because the only way you'll be able to truly control the environment. But the beauty is that you're going into your local places and you're seeing that there is that choice. And the difference in it is this. When you look at something that says that it's organic, that means that it's, and you want to understand the terminology. Can something be grown organically and still be GMO? Yes, it could. The person who's growing it organic isn't going to go, but it theoretically could be because those are two definitions. Organic meaning that they've used organic fertilizers and manures and things for that on the land. They've not used pesticides or chemicals.
GMO, which stands for
genetically modified organism, means that they've taken that seed and in some way they've changed it. Now we have two forms of genetically modified response. One is that when you eat the food, it causes the bug's stomachs to explode. So it has that poison in it. There's also things now that are being produced that manufacture their own pesticides. So the plant grows with its own pesticide within the DNA. Now, you consume that food, and let's say you have, in fact, I was just listening to this amazing series on thyroid health, mind-blowing, I gotta tell you, and it was talking about grains and inflammatory responses on the thyroid and how many people have antibodies in their system, and it's thyroid stuff, and it has nothing to do with any of these other things, but we go down other paths because we've had thyroid issues forever, but it was talking about that grain response. So if you're eating something that is designed to create pesticides as it's growing, and you consume that, and let's say you have compromised cell tissue in your gut, theoretically, could that not react to your cell stuff and
Certainly,
cause
that's
your
a big
cells?
question.
We don't know. We don't know, and nobody's looking at
But
this.
yet we're consuming.
And we're consuming it blindly, and that's the part that needs to change, because GMOs are not new. This is 20 years or so in the industry. This is not new. What's crazy now is it's so saturated in our food. That's what's crazy. Think about this. Even high fructose corn syrup is made from genetically modified corn. Imagine the content of poison in that stuff. And these poisons are neurological. So they're going to affect us.
So these plants, though, they're growing them, but because they're genetically modified,
they're prettier, they're bigger.
You can use pesticides on them, and you can.
They're called, yes, and that is called Roundup Ready.
So if you have cornflakes,
yes,
that and breakfast cereals,
and a lot of these
inundated
crops,
with GMOs.
You bet.
Just go to your local store, and you'll see on them it says it's. By the way, and it's in small print. It's genetically modified. And I sit back and I go, all these young children are eating these GMOs.
Destroying their
and
insides.
What effect is it having on them? What effect is it having on our seniors that might say, okay, I'll get the cornflakes. This will be good for me. But yet it says in the fine print, GMO, and it could have those poisons in it.
And those GMOs mean that food is usually sprayed with 400 times the pesticide load as a traditionally grown piece of food, because when they make it Roundup Ready, it means we've genetically made that food. So if I spray weed killer on it, it won't kill the plant. It'll kill the
everything
weeds.
Around it.
But what's crazy is a lot of these things, and that's what you don't realize, they're sprayed right before harvest. What is the point of that? Is the point of that? I mean, that's just kind of
That doesn't make
it
any
makes
sense.
no sense.
No, it
and
doesn't.
there are things that we're seeing that is part of the protocol of how it's harvested. So you're right. We want to look at it. We want to see that it says non-GMO. We want to see that it says that it can be organically grown or like I said, and that's all going to our labeling. Unfortunately, the last administration took away our labeling. We don't know the origin of our food, which is really scary because we talk about these chemicals and how do we get, I think I'm eating good. I'm doing some salmon.
Right.
Well, is that salmon that's fish we send our salmon there for processing and they send us back. Goodness only knows what we're getting and what's in it. And you can YouTube any of that if you want to see any of that nightmare. But again, it's food of origin. We want to know where that came from. You know,
And
did
there's
that come from Chile where maybe they use pesticides we don't
Exactly.
use? We don't know. So, you know, do we want to, so we eat, it's owning what you're doing.
But the problem is right now that we don't know exactly whatever country it's coming from, how it's being vetted, that indeed they're planting the seeds and they're watering it and they're not using pesticides. There's no way if somebody's going down there taking photos and showing us this on YouTube, I'm probably going to be okay with something like that. But when they're just saying it's organic, I think anybody can say that.
So you're right. So what we can do in our everyday is we can get something like cilantro. Celery greens, the green part, those are really good for binding to heavy metals and chemicals and leaching it out of our system. So adding those things into your diet. I actually just started doing some chlorella, which is a and like an algae. Same thing. Chlorella.
Chlorella de Vil?
Yeah, Chlorella de Vil's drink. It's green. But why was because I was talking to another practitioner. We were talking about heavy metals and how, you know, I will say when I had my teeth done, I didn't have it done by a very good dentist. And I'm sure I do have some metal issues in there. And all of us, we live in a world that has stuff everywhere we turn around. So all we can do to support that is by doing things that help to detox the system. You know, like I was telling you the last time, I do the lemon and I grate the lemon, you know, freeze a lemon and grate it in my water.
Right.
I also do in there some grated fresh ginger. You know, do things that are just naturally part of your day. Because
To
if you're bringing
detoxify.
exactly, because if you're doing a little all the time, your body can handle
You know,
those responses.
Talking about liquid. There's an email somebody sent me, and I don't know who it was right now because I just glanced at it this morning, but it was listing wines
that are
have
high in arsenic. Yeah.
Arsenic in it.
Yes.
Yeah. See, wine's another one of
And-
those things. If it's not organic, they spray a lot of pesticides on those grapes.
Right.
Or it's still in the ground, too.
And pesticides are oil based, so they stick. So now you take that grape and you process it into wine. Imagine the pesticide load in that wine. And, you know, again, you're taking a beautiful thing. There's nothing wrong with wine. It's filled with flavonoids and wonderful stuff. If it's organically grown and made, you know, and fermented, it's a beautiful thing. It's not the commercial poison. And you're right. Some of these ones, a little bit of arsenic every day.
Must
You read
apply to-
arsenic in homeopathics, it's going to really mess with your mind.
and raisins
Well,
too.
it's-
I mean, they're from grapes, so right.
Yes, exactly.
So,
And
you
again,
know,
it
you have
knows
to
you're
be,
consuming them skin and
you know,
all.
Raisin bran. I mean, it could have the brand and everything. You know,
don't have any
you could-
idea.
You could be.
So
you know,
it's silly little things like that. But again, the power of people is it isn't our dollar. And so when we go into the store and we say, hey, because you're right, every time I go into any store, I see more and more options that are there that are organic. At least it gives you that, you know. And you're right. Hopefully, the industry is backing behind that, is regulating it and doing those things. Can you get to everywhere every time? You can't. But you know what? Hopefully, they are. And I think a lot of people in that industry have that integrity because you're not getting as much. I mean, I saw this really great thing the other day. It was a food truck, and the guy gets his food from farmers markets when they're going to throw what's done at the end of the market. So the ugly tomatoes, the crooked carrots, and he calls it the free truck. And he takes this farmer's market food, he prepares it into food, and he goes and feeds homeless people. Mind blowing, right?
Wow.
Now,
That's
what
amazing.
is that beautiful? That's what it's about. The carrot might not be perfectly straight. You know,
Yeah.
it might be crooked. Who cares? It's a carrot. You're going to cut it up and you're going to eat it. And I
And
think
that's interesting, you know, because when I do buy carrots, I want them straight, so I can slice the ugly pieces off. And it's very hard to do that when it's crooked.
But again, you know, and they're not all, but that's the beauty of the randomness of nature. You know, you're going to get what you get with it, and it's going to have that randomness. But it is something that can be done simple. And like you said, it's, you know, it's about looking at the quality of something, because I'm putting in something that's highly toxic, you know, with pesticides. Those are neurotoxins. Those are hormone disruptors. Those can cause really a slow and sad path. Like I said, watching the show on the thyroid, the one part of it that really got me was talking about bipolar and depression and anxiety and these serious mental issues that some of these children started when they were little with thyroid, Hashimoto, or an autoimmune or something, and put on something, but didn't fix why their immune system was wacky.
The underlying
Exactly.
problem.
They go through puberty, and they said puberty and births and certain car accident tragedies can really flip that response in your body. And it was just mind-blowing. And one of the biggest things that set us up for that is grains. And I think why it's so bad today is the fact that most all grains are genetically modified. So even that grain is poison coming to your lips. And let me tell you what, it's hard. I made a thing after listening to this thyroid thing that I did. I took it out. Anything that's a grain I have not eaten in 3 days, I've already kind of noticed a difference with just a little bit of bloat. Okay, I'm going to see it through because I know I have had thyroid issues in the past. And after listening to this, it's amazing, I'm sure, how many people have that as an underlying problem. And most doctors don't test antibodies to see that the thyroid is actually responding in a negative way as opposed to maybe slowing down.
I have a friend who cannot tolerate flour, wheat. And that's, I forget what they call it.
Wheat intolerance.
No, there's something
I don't know
else.
how to make up a
Something
name.
Celiac. Celiac disease.
Yes.
Yes.
Could be, yes.
Yes. And that's a
Fits.
severe reaction. And again, if you think about it, if it's a little bit of acid going through your system, and let's say, you get up in the morning, and it was crazy because I was talking about our culture and how we get up and start our days with sugar. We have muffins and we have coffee and we have sugar and cereal. Other cultures don't. They get up and they start their day with protein. They end their days with sugar, but we start our days with sugar. And it was talking about even how food and how we get that whole cycle in our body gets whacked out. And again, if you look down the crazy train, it's because they want you all to be a patient someday, okay? People, unplug from the crazy train. You don't have to be, because this was a beautiful testimony of many different people saying what they did, and they all started with dairy and wheat. That's where they started. And just those two things made a huge difference, because in the dairy, there's an enzyme that causes our immune response in our body to eventually attack our own tissue. And in this case, with the Hashimoto's or a thyroid, or even look at autoimmune diseases, whatever, lupus, whatever, what is the underlying cause? See, that's our failure medicine. What is the underlying cause?
And we know, I believe, that we're creating our own problems.
100%.
It's just that thyroid is the tip of the iceberg on this.
Yes.
And there are many more problems, especially related to autoimmune, that are taking place. And I believe, autoimmune mostly affects women.
Yes, it does. It was. They said it was 8 times likely to be women.
I'm totally convinced that makeup, skin emollients, and dyes for the hair, the things we might even shampoo.
Even the big part they said, in almost 50% likelihood of having a high thyroid issue was 50-time likelihood, an emotional trauma, holding on to something, not voicing who they were. Well, again, a lot of these women had it after children, after a job. And you're right. And men are more, hey, I don't really care what happened yesterday. But women hold it to heart a little bit. And it was very interesting to see, there was an emotional correlation as well as a physical and environmental.
But you just don't want something that we are consuming to affect us and affect our children, to affect our seniors.
To set them up for failure.
When it does, and it eventually brings them down because of illness, that's a problem. Whether it be a physical illness or an emotional illness, that's a problem that I think in our society we have to face.
You're right.
It's interesting, getting back to this arsenic and putting in wine. Seniors love to have a glass of wine. I do. I love to have a glass
There's
of
nothing
wine
wrong
with
with
my
it.
dinner.
You bet. Nothing wrong with it. It's a great thing.
So I'm going to have to look at that list to see just what
and then
kind.
again, your dollar becomes very powerful, because those little
right.
farmers that are doing it right.
That's right.
I mean, naturally, if it's part of the dirt, and you're going to see, yes, but I'd be curious to see, okay, you tested the arsenic, let's test the whole pesticide.
There you
Let's
go.
test all the chemicals that might show up in that little bottle of wine.
And I'd also like to find out who has organic wine in Santa Clarita Valley.
That's the power of the search engine.
That's right.
You bet.
That's
Or the
right.
telephone.
Probably Whole Foods and Trader Joe's.
Well,
you might be first.
well,
You might be
start your
surprised.
looking there.
You might be surprised, because again, it's about supply and demand, and people are starting to wake up and realize, if I'm going to consume this luxury item, this beautiful item, because wine truly should be medicinal. But if it's coming with pesticides and poisons, then it's not medicinal. It's a slow poison. Exactly.
That's right. It isn't. And we need to take a break. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. And we're speaking with Kim Wall, an alternative medicine advocate. And my goodness, we have really run the gamut.
Well, the big thing is you kind of look at the spectrum and we look at what are the long terms of some of these things could be because of what they do, being neurological or hormone disturbers. I mean, Alzheimer's is out of control, dementia's. I mean, it's so. We don't even think, oh, that's just going to be me. I mean, it's just so prevalent where it never was in our last 100 years, let's say. But again, we're seeing it. I think the big aha is in our animals, because they're doing the same thing. They're eating the same garbage food. We're seeing tumors. We're seeing seizures. We're seeing issues with animals. But in our children, and we all look at the autism spectrum. For sure that exists. There's definitely, that's the severity. But ADD, ADHD, all
the behavioral problems are out there now.
Bet.
And I don't think we're making more diagnoses of it.
No.
I think it is occurring, and I think
Exactly.
something is
Because the
precipitating
food, yes,
this.
it's getting more and more saturated in our food, and the children are receiving more and more neurotoxins intravenously through vaccines.
So think
so
about
you're
this.
bombarded on both ends.
We're having an effect, I believe, worldwide on our environment. But, we look at the world and we say, yes, Earth, we're not taking care of you right now, and we should. Well, when you shrink that down to the individual, we're doing the same thing. This whole Earth is having an effect on us individually, and it's detrimental to our society in the long run, and we need to start looking at this, but I don't think we're even close to having a handle on it. Certainly there are people out there right now who are saying, yeah, I got to do organic, I have to be more pure in how I look at things, but it's not
There's
happening to the
No.
highest degree when you have the GMOs that are still out there, Monsanto running the show, where all the bucks are going in a direction, and they have the ability to continue swaying our minds and even our bodies on how we are fitting into this whole world. And we're not. And we're affecting it negatively, and we're affecting ourselves negatively as well.
Well, like they say, this is the first generation of children that are being to be born that are not going to have the lifespan of their parents because of that. And that's a sad statement to say. I mean, we are not a healthy country.
And just look at the most recent finding from the CDC. The length of age that we are living now has decreased for the first time in 23 years.
Wow.
And there's 10 categories that they look at. 8 of the 10 decreased. And you have to ask the question why. And I put my opinion out as to why it was. But I think that the other side of the coin is just what we're talking about right now, that it's because of what we're doing to each other in all of this. Sometimes the profiteers and those people wanting to make their great monies, they're going to end up getting poisoned as well, as ironic as that is.
That's the crazy part. I know. That's a part that's crazy.
Well, getting back to something that you said a while ago about ADHD, that can be controlled with food.
Sure can.
And it's interesting because my son, who died 32 years ago, he would have been 57 this year. He had ADHD when he was probably 6 or 7. That's when we really, really realized what was going on, because he was literally bouncing off the walls, and the doctors gave us medicine to put him on, which calmed him down. It was fine. But had he been alive today and had that, and I found out this after he passed away, that the food I was giving him was incorrect.
But you didn't know that,
I
of
didn't
course.
know that
because we've
at
been
the time.
taught by that little
That's
box,
exactly right.
instead of really understanding where the food has come from all these years. We're taught by this little box that, don't worry, it's all perfect in this little square thing you eat, or this little powder you put in here and drink.
And in so many,
Was he vaccinated,
so many
Barb?
foods. Yes, he was.
See, and that's another one. Those are such neurotoxins.
And some of those foods you didn't realize had so much sugar in them.
And sugar is the worst.
Oh, yes.
It's the number one.
It is.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, potatoes.
Well, again, and it's looking at a
amazing.
carb, and that's kind of what this whole thyroid thing looked at in the diet part of it, is looking at what carbs you eat, when you eat them, and what are they? Because carbs are not something we were raised on as human mammals. They're very inflammatory. They create inflammation. So if you've got a fire burning all the time in there, what's your immune system going to do? It's going to have a hard battle to keep track of what's important, this cancer cell or this, genetically modified, chicken, whatever, who knows, that I just ate.
Kim Wall, you're always bringing us just great information to our show, to our seniors, to our community about the things that are going on that are threatening to us that we don't realize. How can people get a hold of you?
Well, you can reach me on my cell, which was 818-683-4876, or educator@kingbio.com.
Great. Kim, thanks for being on
My
the show
pleasure,
again.
guys.
Just wanted to mention to our seniors as well, remember this is Daylight Savings Weekend on Sunday. Make sure you move your clock forward or you'll be off time for us listening to us next week. We are sponsored by Advanced Audiology and Comfort Keepers in Home Care. Listen to us next week on the Senior Hour. Now go and enhance your quality of life.